Genesis 2:18. We read, "And Yahweh Elohim says, it's not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper as his counterpart," basically a person who can harmonize with him. We did define marriage as being a covenant of companionship with two parallel elements. The first being that marriage is a lifelong covenant or commitment, and that marriage is a legal contract. You not only get the benefits and privileges or rights, but you also take on the legal and financial responsibilities. That comes with the territory. Today, we're going to take a look at an alliance of two countries. As we move into this, I want to introduce you to your personal cabinet. That's not the cabinet I'm referring to. More like the president's cabinet. In the United States, the 15-member cabinet's member's role is to advise the president on their specific area of responsibility. And they speak into the head and heart of the president to give him counsel on what they should do. Well, I'm going to be talking about three circles and their functions. And these circles I'm referring to as circles of relationship. If you take a look, you are at the center. You are the target of what the members of these circles are focused on. The first is the outer circle. And this is where you actually have the least amount of control. You see, you give to or withhold from others the power they have to influence you. You choose whose voice you listen to. Now, this community circle, there are various communities that we go through, and that's why we don't have a lot of control. At home, maybe some control, but when you go to school, not a lot of control. When you go to work, not a lot of control. To the grocery store or other marketplaces that you may go to, there's no invitation required for people who are in the community circle of relationship. They're just a part of the crowd of life that we will interact with. But then the middle circle, we do have a little more control as to who may be involved in this circle or a member of it. It's the commonality circle. We have activities that we do in common. There are those in this particular circle that have invitations to be there, and there are those who don't have it. Because let's say you want to go to a flea market for shopping. You may invite a friend to go along with you. Well, you've asked someone to join you. But when you get there, there will be other people who enjoy flea markets, but they're not people that you know. So there are people who are invited to join you there, and there'll be people you'll encounter who didn't have invitations. Thirdly, it's the inner circle. You have a lot of control who's in this circle, and it's the committed circle. Those in this circle should be by invitation only. But there are some people who feel they're entitled to this circle, and they'll try to interject themselves in it. But it's on you it's on you who you permit to be here. And so you see, this is where your personal cabinet will come from this third circle of relationship. The folks here are known as your personal cabinet members, and you give them the power to speak into your life. Now, for those in the circle closest to you, the more you should know about them. And you need a baseline of knowledge about any person that you permit within your various circles where you have that control. And I really strongly recommend that there are three things you should be aware of when selecting someone to be your corresponding life partner, or if you just want them to be your person, your friend, quality friendships. These three things include knowing some things about their background, their biases, and their base of operation. Really, really important to know that. Their background is going to look at some very key things. Now, if you've ever played the game of 20 questions, it's the game where you get to ask a maximum of 20 questions to find out the truth about something. Now, you can use that to get to know people. When you ask questions, and we're saying, hopefully in a non-threatening way, you need to actively listen for certain things. Here are some suggested conversation starters, things you can ask, again, in a non-threatening way as you're looking to get to know people. First one is, if you could change only one thing in your life, what would you change and why? And again, you're listening for country background, where they come from, the culture, what's their lifestyle like, and then their communication. How do they say what they need to say? Second could be, what things in your life really make you happy? It'd be good to know what makes a person happy, right? Because when you don't know what makes them happy, you come up with things. For example, you may say, I'm going to give them a surprise party, only to find out they really hate surprises. So these are things you want to know ahead of time. What would be an ideal date for you? Ask that person. And again, they can also ask you these questions. So you may want to do your own homework on yourself. What situations make you feel the most vulnerable or uncomfortable? Where are places you just don't like to be if you can avoid it? What outdoor activities or extreme sports would you like to try? You want to go skiing? You want to go mountain climbing? You want to just sit on the rocking chair? What do you want to do? Some things you'd like to do. What's a country you'd like to visit you've never been to? Do you want to travel? Do you like travel? What are some things you wish your mother or father had told or taught you while you were growing up to prepare you for life as an adult? What kind of things do you like to spend money on? This is a real good one because they find out, are they a spender or are they a saver? Because you need to know, okay? But discussion starters like these put you on the road to understanding things about the other person. It'll also help build a bridge or a barrier between their background and yours. When we look at bias, temperament and personality is one way people view the world. And people may have some biases based on their being male or female. Bias is a tendency to lean in a certain direction, either in favor of or against a particular thing. And to be truly biased means you lack a neutral viewpoint on a particular subject. And some biases are by design. Men and women focus on different things in life. And what I'm referring to regarding bias is you choose what you're choosing or how you view things. And so let's start with the men. And you may get some chuckling out of this. Now, as you can see, men do think a little bit about sex. It has some importance to them. And then there's the favorite part of the brain, which shows their TV remote control addiction. Give me that remote. Are you watching this with your eyes closed? Yes, I am. I was watching that. You're channel surfing. What are you looking at? The TV. It's in the brain. It's in the brain. And then there's that small little kind of gland thing called the attention span. We have to, work to try and develop that. Don't know if it's possible because we're men, but that actually causes us to view the world in a certain way. But now, not to leave the men out there alone, let's see some things about women. As we see, women have a sex initiator gland. I mean, if you look real hard, you can see it. It's there. They do think about sex, but I guess not like men do. Good to know. They have a headache generator, which they can use at will. Oh, and don't feel like doing that. Something's come up. And, you don't know because you can't reach inside a person's head and see what's going on. But now the secret is out. There's something in the brain. And they do give some thought to things like shoes or other form of retail therapy. Yes, not feeling good. Got to go buy something. Ain't got no money. Got to go look to buy something. It's going to be there because once it's done, they feel great. Retail therapy is a real thing. Make no mistake about that. But the bottom line really is that men and women think differently from each other. And as you're getting to know people, or as I like to say, we come from different countries, you want to get to understand the country that the other person is coming from. I mean, this is real talk. We've looked at getting to know a person's, communication is the only way that you're going to find out things about people. And you'll also find out if they're honest or not. Because sometimes when you ask people questions, if you get to a certain part of their life that they're trying to cover, there's a real good possibility they may not be open about it. So it's good to know that, and also maybe find out why that may be if they're willing to work with you on that. But we've looked at background, getting to know that, and we've seen some of the biases or ways that men and women view the world and think about certain things. But now we need to look at their base of operation. That is, what really makes them tick. When you're about to speak to someone, you have to realize you're speaking to the sum total of their temperament and life experience up to that moment. And I just want to explain it this way. First, an event takes place in a person's life. That event is experienced by their five senses of sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. Once they do that, that provides input into the brain. Here, that input is evaluated by conscious thoughts, things that they can think about, and their unconscious thoughts. And those unconscious thoughts can be influenced by what they know or don't know about the Bible, the world in which they live in, especially the cultural group that they are around, or maybe some godly or ungodly influences. These things influence us unconsciously and sometimes will spill over into our conscious thoughts. And all of this is filtered through the temperament that we have. People have specific temperaments. I was noting in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, it reads, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." While a lot of people have always taken that to make sure you teach your children about the church or the Bible and things of that nature, and those things should be taught, it's really saying train them up according to their bent. Train them up according to the way they've been wired. And it's really important to realize God has not only given us our physical capabilities in Psalm 139, it tells us we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And in Exodus chapter 4, it tells us that he makes the blind who are blind, or those who can see, those who can walk, those who are born lame. He actually does that physically, but he also does that for us in our temperaments, our base personality, our personal nature, if you will. If you look at different people throughout Scripture, you can tell there was a difference between Moses, who was the first real leader of Israel, and Joshua, who was the second. You can tell there's a big difference between Thomas, one of the disciples who became an apostle of Yeshua, and let's say Peter. You can tell that there are differences in their personalities, and this is, first, it begins with a baseline. And so we're going to take a look at, as we continue, this evaluation then gets an emotional attachment. Something happens. Oh, this was good. Oh, this was sad. This made me, or, oh my gosh, what in the world is going on? But we make emotional attachments to the experiences that we have, but that emotional attachment is often associated with how we evaluate that experience. Then the end result is how that's expressed through different people. And that's what we're talking about, how people express themselves. And to find out your best natural self, you probably need to think of what life was like for you between the ages of 6 and 12, or maybe up to about 16. And you'll see what you were really like before you really had to learn how to survive and adapt. So let's take a look at some of these things. And I like to look at them as they're different countries. And so for people on the road to marriage, I look at this as the alliance of two different countries, but you need to know which country you're from and which country they're from, so that when you make your alignment, you'll know what you're getting yourselves into. Well, first we begin with the country of Sanguinea. That's right. Their flag is yellow, and they're creative people, and they really love fun. They're people-oriented extroverts, and their focus is on people. Now, they do have emotional needs. And what I mean by emotional needs, I'm referring to the fuel they need to function. In other words, if you give them if you meet these emotional needs, you are putting high-octane fuel in their tank. If you withhold it from them, then they'll be depleted and they'll start acting in other ways that we'll kind of address a little bit. So what do they need? Well, their emotional fuel must include attention, acceptance, affection, and approval. I just put a big A over that and say affirmation. That gets them and keeps them going. They're engaging. They will make initial contact. If they see you standing over to the side, they'll come on. How you doing? What you doing? Why you doing over here? How long you been coming over here? Hey, what's your name? You got a name? I'm sure you got a name. You got a family? I mean, they will just, next thing you know, the person's like, well, I'm so-and-so, and I came from such and such. And that person will say, oh, at least I know someone here, if they were a stranger to the environment. But they will definitely be the first one to make some initial contact. They also like to create enthusiasm and excitement. That's what they do. They like to uplift people and ensure that the people in the group, their sphere of influence, has fun. Why? Because fun is important to them. If you're not having fun in life, why are you living? Matter of fact, if you're not having fun, you're not living. And so, because they don't always focus on the details of some things, because they're having fun in some things, they can be distracted and forgetful about some things. And what I mean by that is they'll see something and then something else may grab their attention, or they may see something else that may grab their attention. But expect them to have a humorous and light touch about most things. Oh, yeah. By the way, they will change lanes on you in a conversation without a transition. They'll be talking about subject A and move right over to B while you're still waiting for the end of A. And then when you try to pick up on B, then next thing you know, they're back to the last part of A. And if you're a man or not from Sanguinea, it's a little heavy, a little difficult or challenging keeping up with people when they don't make a transition that way. But the thing is, they're going to get you included one way or the other. Now, sometimes they are perceived as being too happy and not really taken seriously. Don't make that mistake, because they really are serious and deep thinkers. And when it comes to money, well, people in Sanguinea, they typically like to spend it. But at the end of the day, they really want fun and adventure. Then we move over to the next country of Costa Rica. Costa Rica. Sounds like something else. It's not a real country, though, so don't think it is. It's not. Their flag, the flag of their country, is red. And a chief characteristic of the choleric people is leadership. They are task-oriented, outgoing extroverts, and they focus on getting the job done. They want to get tasks done. When you give them information, make it bullet points. Not a lot of detail. They will fall asleep in your face. They just want to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got it. Let's move. Now, maybe they need more information, but they don't know that yet. But that's enough for them to get moving. So just be aware, they're a little different. But again, they are extroverted, and that's how they operate. They also have some emotional fuel requirements, and that is loyalty, having a sense of control. They want to be appreciated, and they want to accomplish things. Wow. They're good at motivating people to take action. They give quick, clear, and concise instructions when they do it, and they like to control plans to make sure they get the results that they're looking for. That's what they do. Now, but when pushed to an extreme, sometimes they can be a little too impulsive, intimidating, and overpowering. You may find that a lot of people that we would classify as a bully will actually be in this category. Some additional things, they're authoritative and they're convincing. They will get you to believe what they're selling. And just be aware, that's just their personality. But at the end of the day, they need action and they need excitement. They want to make things happen. Why are you just sitting down? Go do something else. I work on 90 minutes of sleep every night. Why can't you do it? That's not healthy for anybody. But again, that's just how they typically operate. Now, know this. Popular sanguines and powerful cholerics require a lot of energy to operate, and they draw their energy from being around people. Let's move to our next country. Melancholia. Melancholia. I want to play some Jamaican music, but that's another thing. This personality country waves the blue flag. They're the perfect melancholy. And perfect doesn't mean flawlessly perfect. It means they like everything to be perfect and in order. Sort of like a Martha Stewart thing where everything is perfect. Now, this is the country of detail-oriented introverts. They do love their details. Like the powerful cholerics, they prefer to focus on the tasks. However, their emotional fuel requires sensitivity, support when they're down, and they tend to be down a lot. They need space. They need silence. Yeah. They're in their element when they get to plan things and when they get to explain the details. They're also sensitive to the needs of other people. They're often good at keeping financial records, and that's because they're detail-oriented. They'll keep track of things, good, bad, or indifferent, but they'll at least keep track of it, and they can give reports on that. Again, things they like to do because they like to explain things. Being accurate is important to them. Just realize the people from this country, that's just how they operate. They can learn to do things differently. Know this also. When they decide they want to do something, like a project, they can become paralyzed by perfection and not get too far beyond step one because they're trying to make it just right. They think people will succeed when they stay in their lane and color inside the lines. However, be aware that they might come across as, well, intellectual and remote. Just kind of like aloof. They may do that. They may sound condescending at times and making others feel less intelligent or make people feel stupid. And that's not the intent, but that's how they can come across when they don't realize, hey, you're not talking to another person who's like yourself. You're talking to a different person altogether. They can get lost in their details, like I said, paralyzed by their perfection, but they want to be accurate and they want to be sincere in the things that they do. But at the end of the day, all they're looking for is order and understanding. One more country, Phlegmatica. Put it all there for you right now. Phlegmatica. The fourth is the green flag of the phlegmatic people or the peaceful people. This is a country of very supportive, people-oriented introverts. And like the popular sanguines, they focus on people. Their emotional fuel, it requires peace and quiet, low stress, respect, calm. That's what they want. They're good at making sure people in their sphere of influence are relaxed and they feel comfortable. People who are from this country are typically very cool-headed. You know, they always find a middle ground and stay calm and function in the middle of chaos. And they don't typically overreact to a negative situation. They just want to think it through. Now, mind you, sometimes they are seen as being undisciplined, lazy, and can't make up their minds. Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And part of it's because they're trying to see, well, what do you want? What would you like to do? Because you see, they're introverted, so they don't get their energy from people in that same way. No, they get their energy from not being around people. So do the melancholies. No, I don't need people around to do what I do. But those who are extroverted, they tend to do that. Now, one thing about the phlegmatic person or the peaceful person is don't count on them to give a great motivational speech. Not necessarily, at least not by their nature. Can they? Sure, people can learn to do things, but you want to be aware. They don't do it naturally. And what do they want at the end of the day? All they want is rest and quiet time. As we take one more look at the four flags of the personality countries, I need you to notice two very important things. Generally speaking, people have a temperament around being an extrovert or introvert. An extrovert draws energy from being around people. You may have seen some speakers who are extroverted, and if they have a crowd of 3 or 4 people, you know, they can get into it, but then all of a sudden you double that or triple that. For some reason, they have more information to say. They get more engaged in it. You make that times 100, man, they are already there. They're just there. And they need to watch that, but that's how they are. You know, that's just where they are in that sort of thing. On the other hand, you've got the introverts, and they draw their energy from not being around people. So when they say, hey, come out front and go to the podium and say your name? And say, can I just write it down and they put it on a slide? I mean, do I have to go out there and talk to people? Can they do it? Sure, they can. But the idea is by nature, they don't need that. As a matter of fact, they like to have that small crowd. But the reality is they can be extremes, but they are definitely differences in people. The second thing is people generally lean towards being people-oriented or process and task-oriented. People-oriented people tend to include people in their plans, where process-oriented or task-oriented people don't mind excluding people if you don't fit into the plan. You're not doing your job? Next. That's just how they are. They're not trying to be mean, not really. That's just they want to reach their goal. And if you're not going to help them do that, the choleric and the melancholy people, they're on that task. They're trying to make sure it gets done. As we look over the different personality profiles of these countries, they'll often display a major or dominant trait. That is, a person might be more sanguine and another might be more melancholy or something else. But we'll also find that there are some natural primary and secondary traits that they have. Like a person may be a sanguine and choleric. They're extroverted, but they like people and they like process. Then you have those who are choleric and melancholy. That's an extrovert, introverted, but they like process. Then we have the melancholy and phlegmatic. They're both introverts, and so they can work together more easily, having those two traits in their life. And then those who are phlegmatic and sanguine, they both like people. But there are also times when there are some unnatural combinations. That's when you have a person who is primarily a sanguine, but they act like a melancholy or vice versa, or a person who is primarily a choleric and they act like a phlegmatic or vice versa. And usually this has happened because they're living in a survival mode. And so that's something you may want to look at. Now, there's so much more we can say about personalities. And if you're interested in learning more about that, especially how they interact with one another in family, in church, in business, in different areas, if you're interested, put that in the chat or text or send me an email to let me know about your interest. When two countries come together, they must learn one another's background, biases, and their base of operation, then determine what they want to build together. In his country, maybe the man handled the finances, but this particular man needs a calculator to add 2 + 2. But she has a degree in accounting. They can go over the finances together, but let her do the math. Or maybe in her country, the women kept the 3 C's: cooking, cleaning, and children. But she works 40 hours a week. And besides, he likes to cook, and he's a little OCD about cleaning. He can share the C's with her. And in his country, maybe they rolled up the toothpaste tube to bring the toothpaste out in an appropriate manner. In her country, they just squeezed it out, and it was their appropriate manner. Buy 2 tubes of toothpaste. Don't let things like that create issues that aren't there. A few other key areas in life that include practical life goals, practical and spiritual life goals. What about raising children? How do we want to do that? What church style preference do you have? Do you want to have it where everyone is really quiet in consecrational meditation? Or do you want to have it where the sound have you jumping off the rafters? That makes a difference in how you're pulling things together and what you will choose to do together. And what is the extra introvert mix in the relationship? It's good to know these things. Now, you're going to know everything? No. But the more you know, the easier it will be on being able to come together in many things. If you're on the road to marriage, you need to consider these things. Why? Because they are going to come up. Make no mistake about that. And the issue is, how do you plan to work through that? Now, you can be in it and figure out how you're going to work through it. Or as you're moving towards that, let's see how you'll do it. So I trust that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart has been acceptable not only to Yahweh, but they have given you a clear, accurate, relevant, and edifying understanding of what it's like for people to come together from 2 different countries into one. Shalom. Thank you for watching, and remember, leave your comments and questions in the comment area below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, Shalom.